Jason Roberts. Thanks so much for coming on the Inner Edison Podcast. I appreciate being here today.
Thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to it.
All right. So before the show, before we went live and everything, this is what I want to tell everybody. If you're going to be on a podcast, reboot your router before you get on, do a couple of things, because no one understands the whole game and how it's played, but it's the upload that is the most important number that you have. And you need to have 100 or more. And that's just, if it's anything lower than that, it's just not going to be a good quality podcast, sound wise or video. And this is not on you, Jason. This is just people don't understand that out there.
No, they'll learn something new every day, man. I'm glad to know that. I appreciate it.
And it happens all the time. It's not something new. And they don't tell you when you sign up for some of these things, do podcasts, you need this, and this. So I guess I really have to do my podcast course that everybody's telling me I should do. So
yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
I've never paid attention to the upload part. I've always just looked at the download part. So good to know.
Yeah, well, download's great for gaming, but
okay.
But not for, and it's whatever comes down is fine when you're, TV and all that stuff. But when you do live video and other stuff, that's all upload. And that's just, yeah. Because I used to have a guy in my office doing all my stuff. And I was like, man, we can't do anything anymore around here because he's uploading all the videos to YouTube and everything else. Sure. But enough about me. That's not about me today. It's about you, Jason.
Right.
All right. So I read your bio. I read a bunch of stuff about you. What I kind of want to go, Inner Edison is your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats.
Sure.
And that defeat can be anything for people. It doesn't have to be, I had one guy who's like, well, how's a $50 million loss? Does that work for you? I'm like, well, that works, but it could be $10,000. It could be, something else. It doesn't matter what that is. I'm in the mortgage industry, still in the mortgage industry, been in it since early 90s. I'm a glutton for punishment. So that's why I stay in it. But, I've learned a lot and I do things differently than other people. But what do you say you do right now overall? Then we'll go back. What's your number one thing you do right now?
Real estate investing. Yeah. Invest my money and other people's money. So that ranges from apartment buildings. We have a assisted living facility, kind of all things real estate, just not on the lending side so much anymore.
Okay. So now I assume, do you do syndications, those kind of things also?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've been around a while.
I can tell.
Syndications, thanks a lot. I don't look that old. The problem I had with syndications myself is pre-2008. There was a lot of them. And then when 2008 dropped, everybody lost everything and all those syndications and everything else. So
coming again right now, man. It's coming again right now.
No, that's happening again.
Oh yeah. I mean, 25% of every commercial loan in the United States is set to arm adjust within the next 12 to 24 months. And record commercial lending in 18, 19, 20, 21, record in the history of our country. So, and the majority of those, a lot of those people got 5-year arms. So that's going to take a multi-million-dollar investment from a 2.5 or 3% interest rate to a 7% interest rate. And we all know what happens when that happens.
Yeah. It goes back to the bank and somebody else picks it up for a deal.
That's right. That's right.
So it's how you look at it. There's a huge operating income to get into. But I spoke to a bunch of people because I do a radio show called Real Estate Jerky. We give you something to chew on. And we talked to people all over the country. We had Jake and Gino on about their stuff and a few other people. And we were talking about this where a lot of people didn't get a fixed rate during that period of time. They're like, hey, rates are so cheap. We're just going to get our arm and it's fine for 5 years.
Cheaper.
Yeah, no. Long term, you always want to have that long term number. That's just me from being in it, but other people look differently. So
a lot are going to learn that lesson the hard way, unfortunately. But like you said, man, I see it as an opportunity. I made that mistake before. You learn your lesson. You do it different the next time.
Well, hopefully you learn.
Yeah.
So your story. So prior to doing all the real estate you do now, you in 2008, I think you're up. How long? Tell me your story up into 2008.
Yeah. I mean, I won't go back too far, but I grew up in a small farm town. I didn't really have like mentors or business people around me. We didn't have a whole lot growing up. My dad bailed when I was a kid. And so my mom was just trying to raise 3 boys the best she could. And I got a job at 18 at a collection agency, which was, making 300 outbound calls a day, every single day, calling people that didn't want to hear from you about the bill that they didn't want to pay. And it was a guy that left there that got into the mortgage industry that made me, as an 18-year-old kid think, man, it sounds like a whole lot more fun to be able to help somebody buy their first house than it does to call these people that haven't paid Discover Card in a year and a half. And so that's really what started that journey. I called down to the state of Missouri at the time. You know this, but I asked them, what does it take to open a mortgage company in Missouri? And they sent me this packet, and it was, it had a whole bunch of stuff on it, but at the end of the day, as at 18, 19 years old, the only thing I didn't have was $1 million surety bond and 50 grand in cash. And that's what it was at the time. It's drastically, as most of it's drastically different now, but that's as hard as it was back then. So I took the next year and I saved up the 50 grand, got the surety bond, and we were in business. And, lots of mistakes, lots of hard lessons learned, but, we went from the spare bedroom in my condo to, about 100 employees at our peak. We became the number one rural housing lender in the state of Missouri. We really focused on purchase money more than refi, even though rates were really good at the time. It was, as a young kid, I didn't know a whole lot, but I knew that the one thing we can't control is where interest rates go, right? And like, this is really great that everybody's focused on refis right now, but what happens when the rates go up? Well, then what do we do? And so we focused on purchase money right out of the gate. So that was a cool way to grow and a cool way to establish our business and work in the community and work with realtors and do that kind of thing. And, then what happened, 07, 08 came, and that drastically changed things.
Yeah. Well, that was a very unusual time because of, all the stuff that went up to making it that way. And I talked about it today on my show that because I read an article that was talking about the lending standards back there. It wasn't really the lending standards. It was the fact that the bond rating agencies rated these bonds as AAA, then they should have been an F or a G or a Z. Right. And watch The Big Short. It explains everything.
That's right.
Those people should have went to jail. That's who should have went to jail. Those people lying and then, you got an asset that's not working. Let's just slap it in with all these other assets and they'll never know and it'll perform.
When you watch that movie and see what really happened, it really is unbelievable. And like it's also unbelievable that, all that stuff was going on for years prior to the market collapsing. But if you were to, tune into media or watch the news, it was everything's great. Lending's at an all-time high. Everything's the best it could possibly be. And then you wake up the next morning and it's like the whole world falls apart. But yeah, you're right. It was, we were only using the products that we were given. The banks were the ones giving us the products. We weren't making up those loan products. It was, they have this credit score, you can do this type of loan program, but then they were classifying those, like you said, as they were AA or AAA rated, and they weren't. You shouldn't give somebody with a 580 credit score and no job a AAA rating. Like that's just not how it typically works out.
And people don't understand. Back then, 3/4 of the people had a FICO score under 640.
Yeah.
And a quarter only had it above that. Where now we're complete opposite. 3/4 of the people have a FICO score over 700, and only a quarter has it down that low, which is very unusual. Give us some more time here over the next few years. If everything stays the way it goes, this course, I'm not trying to get political, but if it stays with the way it is with the same people in, we're going to have a lot more people hurting and a lot more horrible FICO scores.
Totally agree, man.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't understand is what helped to cause that whole 2008 situation was the new builds would sell to anybody and they'd sell 2 to 3 homes to the same person. Yeah. And then these people would turn around and sell them later to somebody else or rent them or something else. And that's where during that period of time, everybody thought we needed all those homes when in reality we didn't. And people didn't understand that. And we don't have the same problem now because people keep thinking, when's they're going to see a bubble? The only bubble is opportunity that you're going to lose. So, yeah. So, it's still a great time for investors to purchase certain places and other things. And, it's a long-term game. It's not quick overnight like a lot of people think it is.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people get so caught up in like trying to have a crystal ball and predict where things are going. And I think that if you kind of micro that down a little bit and just see where what it's doing right now and play the game right now, it's like you said, it's a long game. Things may retract a little bit. They may go up. We're in a kind of a weird place right now. Houses are sitting a little, but what's weird is relative too, right? Like what's happening right now, houses are sitting a little bit longer. They're not selling as quick as they were, but we also just came out of a situation where people were paying $100,000 over list price and, writing offers that had no contingencies and no inspections and escalation clauses and all kinds of crazy stuff that we've never seen before either. So, they're not making more of it. You know what I mean? They're not making more land. So it's always going to go up. It's always going to go up over time. If you look at the history of what real estate's done over time, I mean, it's been on a constant up trajectory. It corkscrews, on its way up, but it's been on a constant up trajectory forever.
And people don't realize when we go into a recession, that's when rates go down and real estate goes up. Yeah. And that's what happened during the pandemic. We thought we were all going to die. They shut the country down and rates dropped to something. And we were in a recession, and people didn't understand that we're in an actual recession. They shut everything down. Nobody can do anything. Well, not everybody. Some of us could. Yeah. But and we're never going to see those rates again unless the whole country gets shut down again. So just plan on, you're going to see rates in the 4s to 5s for a while once we get down there, of course. But we're pretty much on that tipping point that I see right now. That things are going to change.
You think it's going to go back that way?
Yeah, unless the administration doesn't change.
Yeah.
No matter who's in, we're going to see a recession. One's going to be harder than the other one.
Agree.
And the current one, if they keep with the same administration who likes to spend and everything else, and this wasn't supposed to be a real estate show, people. This is supposed to be about business, but this is important to know that it's like the Fed and the government is supposed to work together. It's like having a husband and wife or two partners, whatever you want to call it, on a budget, and only one of them's on the budget. It doesn't work. They both have to be on it. That's and right now, we've never had this government on a budget with the Fed. So the Fed's fighting them. So the fact that we've gotten to here to where inflation isn't going up as much as it used to is amazing point that we've gotten to this with as much as they've been spending.
Sure.
And I say this on my radio show. I don't care if it was a Republican administration, independent, or Democrat. If you're doing what I tell you you're doing wrong, I don't care who you are. You're doing it wrong.
That's right. It is what, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? Like you can pick whatever team or side you want, but I mean, we keep doing these same things. We're going to keep getting the same thing that we've been getting.
You want to do this smarter? Outlaw all parties and just pick people and then how they're going to run. Because most of us are in the middle.
Yeah.
90% of us are in the middle. Actually, it's probably 98% of us are in the middle. You got the 1% on each side. That's extremely 1% on each side. Pretty much we all want the same thing. Maybe one or two things differently, but we're pretty much all in the middle. The fact that they fight us against each other so they can take advantage is what the problem is. I'm done.
I couldn't agree more, man. I think we're in a world where the only people that benefit are them, or at least, I mean, we're benefiting from the actions that we take in our own life and our own world, right? But policy making is about, it is what it is. Yeah, not a political show, but yeah, I'm with you.
No, I don't care. But it's about their pocketbook. You took a broke bartender, and now she's worth over $20 million.
How does that happen? Yeah.
Yeah, I know how it happens, but that's why there's companies out there. I don't know if you've seen it. They actually are. You can invest in the same companies they're investing in. They watch their portfolios and go, okay, here's so and so's portfolio. This is what they just did. Now you can do the same thing. And because I had one of the companies reach out to me because of my TikTok,
really?
And they're like, hey, will you do some videos for us? And I was like, I thought it was an amazing thing, the fact that you could. That's what their company was set up, is this. You invest the same way everybody else. Yeah. All the politicians. So that way, because I mean, if you look back in the day when Nancy Pelosi got founder shares for Visa, and then Visa didn't come to the fore on anything, which is illegal. That's insider trading. But according to them, it's not, because Congress takes care of Congress.
Sure.
They don't have an outside body that oversees them.
Yep. So yeah. So it's what's in the best interest for them, not necessarily what's in the best interest.
So what you should do with your life is invest the same way they do. And they'll never put term limits because that would be wrong for them. But if everybody had term limits, we wouldn't have this problem.
Completely agree.
But what you need to do as a person is, this is what I'm doing, because Fox, CNBC is all I used to watch, and then I got into Fox News, business, whatever. I just went back to CNBC. They kind of don't do the same political stuff that all the other channels do. So,
really? Yeah.
That's because now I can watch it and not get pissed. So watch the market, what's going on. They don't add in the commentary about which one's this, that. I just want you to tell me the news. Don't color it the way you want me to think I should hear it.
Agree. It's hard to find that anymore, man, where it's just the news. Like I kind of tuned off all news. I had my brother works for Stifel Nicholas, a bank, in their mortgage department, and he texted me, I don't know, whatever day it was that Microsoft crap happened, just recently.
Yeah, last week.
And yeah, he was talking about how like this hell of a day or something. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What's wrong? He's like, how do you not know that this happened? I'm like, I'm just not. I'm in my world, and I try to not worry too much about what I can't control. But yeah, crazy.
And that's what you need to do. But we get all, but I mean, they do mess with us, and that's the one I was talking about. Currently with our current administration, as soon as they signed that bill to get rid of that one pipeline, I was like, inflation's coming. And it came hard and high, and it affected all of us. And nobody understood that, because 42 years ago was the last time inflation was around. I mean, you had to be over your 50s even to understand what that was, or be around, to understand living through that, or your parents telling you about it. Most people have no idea. Now it's here, and we went through it. And so you would think, are you better off 4 years ago or today? That's how you should vote. Vote your pocketbook and move on. But don't focus on all that stuff. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's kind of what I got out of. Once I got on talk radio, power talk, it just messed me up, because I have to know what's going on. And unfortunately, that's not something you want to do.
That's right.
But what do you see going forward? And so you say you mainly do real estate, but you do coaching too, right?
Yeah. I mean, we overall, what I kind of realized over time, because we started, as I started making more money in real estate investing, it was, okay, well, real estate investing was never this thing that I like woke up in the morning and I was crazy passionate about, right? Like it was always a vehicle that allowed me to live the quality of life that I wanted to live. I went from being a slave to my business, being there at 5:30 in the morning, leaving at midnight, 6-7 nights a week, neglecting my family, my relationships, pretty much my health, everything, to waking up one morning and saying enough. Like I want to build a business that serves me. I don't want to serve it anymore. I want to have freedom. I want to have, the whole reason I opened a damn business was so that I could have more freedom. And now I've got less freedom because I'm chained to this thing. And so it was one of the biggest lessons that I learned through getting wiped out and everything else was I had this guy that came and sat down. He's like, Jason, I know you think you're special because you're good at business and, you invest in these things and they all make money, but dude, you're working 15 hours a week. I know all kinds of guys like you that neglect what really matter for to be able to say that they're successful in business. And he said, what would be really impressive to me is if you could figure out how to make more money, if you could figure out how to serve more people, if you could figure out how to change more people's lives in 3 or 4 hours a day instead of 15 hours a day. Now that would be impressive. And I was kind of pissed, like when he first said it, because he was challenging me, and like the end of that conversation didn't go good. But the next couple of weeks, I was thinking, like, damn, he's right. Like, why am I doing this? The whole point of it was for freedom. The whole point of it so I could go to my niece's soccer game on a 3 o'clock on a Tuesday and not feel like the whole world's going to crash around me. And so, that was what I really focused on moving forward. So yeah, I mean, like that spilled into, working with a medical spa, working with a law office, working with a dental practice, working with all these entrepreneurs that kind of suffered from the same thing that I did. And that is, if we work really, really hard right now, then someday we can have this great life. And I think there are parts of that are true, but like, people think that, when I get to this certain place, then I can take more time off. Then I can, if I do this. And what I realized is you can do it right now. We're doing things wrong. And I'm able to share this because I just screwed up more than most people. But, I did that for 13 years, man. If I work really, really hard right now, outwork everybody else, do all that. And someday I can have this great life. And the reality of it is, like, the reason why I was working 15 hours a day, it's not always easy to say, but when you look in the mirror, it's not because the business is busy. It's not because it's because of me. It's because of my skill set. It's because I'm not delegating or leading correctly. It's because I'm not structuring things correctly. And so I've found a lot of joy in being able to come into another entrepreneur's business that looked like one of mine from the past and restructure that in a short amount of time to where they're making more money, but they're working significantly less hours.
And what's the biggest way to do that?
I think the one thing is, like, burn it all. One of the first thing I do is burn it all down. Like, if it was all to burn down today and rebuild it in the correct way, like how would you build it where you're not putting yourself on the assembly line? I guess one of the biggest things to think about is, are you working on it or are you working in it? And if you want to be, if if you want to have freedom, you got to work on it. You can't work in it. And so how can I build this thing in a way where I'm not on the assembly line? It's not a real business. It's a job. And I mean, people get aggravated when I say that, but the truth of the matter is, like, it's not a business, it's a job. If it doesn't make money while you're away, if it doesn't make money when you're on vacation, if it doesn't run without you, then it's not really a business, it's a glorified job. And I'm not making a glorified job wrong. Like, if that's what you want, cool. But if you want that freedom, if you want freedom of time, freedom of choice, financial freedom, you've got to set that thing up in a way that it operates without you. And sometimes just the mindset of, like, pretend you're building it for somebody else. Pretend you're a consultant. You're trying to help somebody else's business. You wouldn't assign yourself any of those roles because you're just consulting. So how would you restructure this thing in a way where it can run and operate and flow from assembly line A, from the beginning of the assembly line to the end of the assembly line without you on some part of that assembly line?
And so that was what I was good at. But the problem you run into, like, certain industries, like if you look at ours or mine. Yeah. I mean, you're in real estate too, but not like I am. You could do everything right, have it perfect, and then the stupid thing just happened, and now you just lost everything. A third of, instead of having 85% of existing home sales on the market, you have 35%, which when I was putting people on low rates, and we weren't making a ton of money at that time because people want, the deal and everything else, you're doing volume, and you're going, okay, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot going forward. They're not going to be that many people wanting to move up or do this. Right. And that's kind of what we've set up, and where people are stuck until rates get to 5 1/8, at 5 1/8, 9 million people will move up. But until then, you're talking 3 million, 7, it's hardly anybody's going to do anything. So,
yep.
And so that's what I'm trying to get at. So you can do everything perfect, and then something like that come in and bite you, and it destroys your company. And the question is, at that point, is that the right industry to be in?
Sure.
That's the first question.
Sure. Yeah. And the second question is, like, how can we adapt? How can we innovate? What are different things that we can do? But to your point, I mean, like, when 07, 08 came, I mean, I don't know anybody that was in our space at that time. I mean, there were like 3,700 licensed mortgage companies and banks in Missouri. I don't know about where you're at before that happened. And there were less than 300 on the other side of it. I mean, that's what it did to an entire industry. So, like, yeah, I mean, there's lightning strike situations that can, drastically impact an entire industry. And, I guess one of the big things around that is, one of the things that I focus on, one of the lessons that I learned out of that is I try to be as debt-free as possible. I get, we can make the argument of good debt and bad debt. I'm talking about personal debt. I like nice things. If I want a $100,000 truck, I need to be able to write a check for it. If I can't write a check for it, then I can't afford it. That was what I adopted going forward, because when you've watched every single thing that you work for get stripped away from you because you can't pay the payments anymore, that kind of has a little bit of a lasting impact. So, one of the things I adopted after the crash was, if I can't write a check for it, I can't afford it. Now we have loans and things in our business, but even that, man, I try to keep it a 50, 60, 70% loan to value, maybe bring in some partners, maybe, like you said, kind of syndication route a little bit, but maybe I only own 60 or 70% of something as opposed to 100% of something. But if it goes sideways or goes the wrong way, I don't lose anything. It's not going to wipe me out and put me back to zero. And so for me, those were some things that, help me sleep a little bit better at night, make me a little bit less worried when tides change in a strong way.
But it also helps if you're making passive income. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing I learned out of this last one, because everybody I knew, they're doing all this additional stuff they're doing. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm focused on the mortgage industry. I can make a ton of money in it. But then when it changes, and let me preference that. My bad day is somebody else's best day.
That's right.
And that's not trying to brag. That's just, but that's just, the way it is. And so, and one of my coaches, Steve Sims, he was like, your worst day is other people's best days. So, yeah. And you're right. And you have to think about that. So, I'm only making this, and they're like, what, you're only making that? That's a lot, but not if you were making 5 times that before.
That's right. Yeah. It's all perspective, right?
Right. And so that's what you're talking about. It's so important. But I say, have multiple streams of income, passive, other stuff. So that way, if one business isn't doing really well right now, like this industry that I'm in, well, picking up, other stuff is doing really well. But I've talked to people who were in real estate, then they got into insurance. and then the insurance is bad now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
sold
yeah,
their
yeah,
company,
yeah.
you know, but prior to that, their real estate was doing really good. They went to sell it and then it was okay. And then they got in the insurance industry. And then now that in the last year, it's the worst in one of the worst industries to be in because of the costs for insurance.
You know, you brought up a good point, and I think another way of saying what you just said is like, how can I have my money make me money? You know, multiple streams of income, that type of thing, because you know it's really the last 5 or 6 years, I changed the majority of my. I've always been focused on being an income earner. Like, what can I do to increase my personal income every year and do better than the year? But that's a eat what you kill game. You know what I mean? That's a there's never a rest. There's never, like, you've got to maintain that and keep, especially if you're increasing your expenses in proportion to what you're earning, then you're just as broke as you were, you know, making $1 million a year as you were making $100,000 a year. But like really focusing on what can I do that generates passive income that's coming in when I'm not having to trade time for dollars. And that was something that really shifted in me in the last 5 or 6 years. Or what are some things that I can do what are some things that I can invest in? Where can I put my money? What are some smarter decisions I can make that cause income to come in when I didn't go to work today, you know, or didn't go to work for that investment anyway?
So what changes did you make?
So, I mean, one of the things we started doing is like looking at multifamily apartment buildings, we bought a 94 bed assisted living facility that has an insane cash flow. Now it's a business, but I mean, it's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I live in St. Louis. I don't go to work there. You know, I maybe contribute 5 hours a week of my life, of my time. And I'm the 70% owner. My partner, Rachel, and I own 70% of that business. I don't own all of it, but we control it. We own it. That 70% of that cash flow goes to us, but I'm not showing up to work. You know, we have 94 residents, 50 employees. And that would have 10 years ago, I would have said, there's no way in hell that you can own and operate a business in 5 hours a week. But that was because that was the way that I was thinking. You know, my old map of the world was, you know, your job as a man is to work and provide. And I still agree with that, but like I associated work and provide to who logs the most hours. And it was that whole mindset shift of like, how can I make this business better than it was before I bought it? How can I make it generate more revenue? How can I cut expenses? How can I serve more people from St. Louis in you know 3 to 5 hours a week, where the old owner was working 80 hours a week? Like it doesn't make sense. But when you start asking better questions, you start getting better answers, and we've held pretty true to that.
Do you, besides that assisted facility, is there any other? Do you have any other ones?
Yeah, we've got as far as real estate is concerned, or just
No, I'm
business
talking about
period?
assisted living facilities because I'm hearing
That's,
go
that's
ahead.
That's the only assisted living facility. Like if I had to do over again, I don't know that I would have started with a 94 bed, to be honest. I mean, it was you talk about rehabbing a house. It was rehabbing a business, and it was a decent sized business. We do about $5 million a year in annual revenue. I'm not saying, hey, look at me. I'm just saying there's a lot of moving parts, right? There's a lot of money coming in, a lot of money going out, a lot of overhead, a lot of things like that to consider. But we have other investments like in the shared housing space that, you know, are probably more real estate centric than, that's a business. It's got employees. It's got people. It's you wouldn't be able to call that completely passive, but it's relatively passive for us.
Well, you don't work there.
That's right. That's what I mean. Yeah, I'm not trading my time for dollars per se in exchange for my paycheck.
Right. And I was just getting at because from what I'm seeing, they're needed even more now, and a lot of the ones that have been around for a long time are having problems. They're just not bringing in enough money, and they're not taking care of their people as well. And the reason I bring that up is my daughter manages some of those, and she, you know, just they move, those directors move around from one to the next because of that. So
I don't think we have enough builders and building companies in the country to build enough homes to house the amount of people that are coming down the pipe that need that. Like our population change and our aging up. I mean, it's like 10,000 a day or something like that. And the number is going to triple by 2030 of the amount of people that we need to house. Like that's absolutely, you want to put yourself in line of a market shift or of a trajectory. Put yourself in that one. We get 70 to 80 referrals per week at our 94 bed per week of people that need a place, and we're relatively full at all times. So I mean, we can't take them, and I mean that's where it is. You want to where our country is at population wise. That's just what's happening.
No, because I know people who do the smaller ones. They'll do like 4. You know,
sure.
They'll buy a single family home, slap 4 of them in there, and and they do a ton of them because it's certain things they have to do is a lot less. But
That's right.
But it takes them a full year to get going on each one. So you
Yep.
got to have the overhead costs for the year they cover while you're getting it ready.
Sure.
Yeah. So I felt
Yeah.
a bunch of them buy them with single family loans. You know, their daughter is going to live there, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
the one that's going to manage it or whatever, you know.
Sure.
So, yeah. Because I mean you can buy even a fourplex. You could do that now if you know if you put your kid in there.
That's right.
Down. So
yeah, there's ways to make it happen if you got the motivation to go out and do it.
No, that was something I've been looking into myself just because what I've been helping other people do. I'm like, this sounds like it's a good thing. I don't want to manage it. My wife's a nurse. My daughter's a nurse. The other daughters are going to be a nurse. Our son is in the Army and he's going to eventually be a nurse, but it's not like they want to, you know, work in those facilities. But
sure. Yeah.
All right. So going forward, what's your big plan going forward? Work less?
Man, I'm in a good place as far as the work-life balance that didn't exist for me before. So I'm happy in that. At the same time, man, I'm a motivated guy. I always want to. I think if we're not growing, we're dying, right? Like if we're not striving for the next thing, then we're decaying in some capacity. So, you know, I'm really focused like right now. And this may sound cliche to people, but I mean, it's probably why you do your show. It's probably why I do what I do. Like I can flip all the houses in the world and like you can make all the money in the world, but money does not equal fulfillment in life to me. I mean, I've had a lot of money. I've been broke. I had money again. Does money make things easier? Sure. Does money make the, decisions easier in life? Yeah. But does it bring fulfillment? I don't think so. And if it did, then, we wouldn't see all the celebrities, all the beautiful people that brought beautiful gifts to the world that commit suicide or in their life or whatever. Like we can have all the money, but if we're not doing something that we feel like we're making a difference, then nothing changes. And so, a big part of my time and my girlfriend Lucy's time these days, like we started this group called Transformation Nation. And that was like all about, what can we do? Like, I think 80% of success at anything is psychological and 20% is mechanics. And in the whole world is like programmed to run around and find the mechanics. And don't get me wrong. Like if you have a business model of how to build a successful loan origination business or a mortgage company, like that blueprint, that model is super important. Like it can get you to the finish line 10 years faster, but it's the mindset behind it. It's like your belief structure behind it is what impacts. Like 90% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years. Why? Like if you can get a really in-depth understanding of why 90% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years, and you just do what the 10% do that succeed do, you can stack the deck in your favor. And so that's been like a really rewarding project for me, is taking somebody that's life looked like how mine used to look, where they're a slave to their business. They don't see their wife anymore. They're not able to be present in their kid's life and like give them that gift of that was given to me, really. You know what I mean? That's where I'm having a lot of fun today. That's where I'm enjoying my life the most, and feeling like I'm having the most impact.
If people want to get in touch with you to get help, where do they go?
And you can go to www.jasonroberts.tv, not .com, but .tv, or on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I'm Coach Jason Roberts.
All right, Jason, thanks for being on the show today. I appreciate having you here.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's been a pleasure. Again,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care.